Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi amma ba'd. So moving on to the second chapter, second hadith, that says getting married first, or get married first, or go overseas and study. Get married first, or go overseas and study. So the first chapter, that is the first chapter, not the second chapter. The hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud with regards to his discussion with Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The second chapter is after we've proven what the student of knowledge should or should not do, there's a further branch or extension of that ruling and of that issue. And that is the common problem. If you're telling me that it's recommended to get married, the Prophet commanded me to get married, there's no contradiction or clash between getting married and seeking ilm, then how am I supposed to take care of my wife? How am I supposed to buy a case of Pampers and baby wipes? How am I supposed to buy my wife the basic things that she needs, basic toiletries, nothing expensive or luxurious, basic things that a woman needs? How is that possible if my nose is stuck in the books day and night? Bukhari, Muslim, Musnad, Ahmed, Ajurumiyya, this book, Tatim al-Kawakib, etc., etc. How is that even mumkin? All right? And are you commanding me? And are you advising me? And are you instructing me with something which is impractical? Okay? So that is the wisdom. And that's the manifestation of the cohesive glue between chapter 1 and chapter 2, and that the book is not randomly put together or sporadically put together. So it says, how can I seek knowledge and support my wife and children? The golden question of the ages. The author, may Allah forgive him and hide his sins, says, hadith number 2. Narrated Umar radiallahu anhu, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, لو أنكم توكلتم على الله حق توكله لرزقكم كما يرزق الطير تغدو خماصا وتروح بطانا. Translation states, if you were to rely upon Allah with the reliance He is due, you will be given provision like the birds. They go out hungry in the morning and come back with full bellies in the evening. This hadith has been collected by Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, and As-Sunan Al-Kubra, and Ibn Majah. So Umar radiallahu anhu narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructs us, commands us, orders us, and also not necessarily condemns us, but blames us for not utilizing the power of tawakkul as it should be utilized. Lo annakum, if you only really, honestly, truly relied upon Allah and in Allah, then Allah would give you what you need. And oftentimes Allah would give you what you want, beyond what you need. And an example of that, a tangible, practical, living example of that is the bird in the sky. The bird leaves its nest, its belly is empty. Rather, not only is the bird's belly empty, but the little chicks or baby birds, their stomachs are empty as well. They're crying and screaming and shrieking for food. So we have the bird, the woman, the mother, the father, their stomachs are empty. And the little baby birds, their stomachs are empty, 3 or 4 or 5 of them. The bird has no guarantee or promise which is in writing that it's going to come back with the necessary food and game, whether it be worms, whether it be mice, or field rats, rabbits, bunnies, whatever is the hunted game, fish, okay? So the point is that the bird puts his trust in Allah. I leave my nest, I may come back with something, I may not come back with something, but I'm going to try. And it's my duty to try, and I know that bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, I'm going to be fed, and my little small birdies will be fed as well. And an interesting fact is when you read about different birds, whether they're birds of prey, obviously that's the common example, or whether they're birds that eat nuts and berries and fruits and things like this, the concept of looking for food in the wintertime, or when it's cold and it's windy, or the danger of being hunted or caught and trapped, the concept of birds of prey, and how unsuccessful many attempts at hunting are, and how much energy is lost and used for the bald eagle to swoop down and to grab the salmon out of the water, or grab any other type of fish that is pulling out of the water with its talons. If it misses once or twice, it gets very hungry, and it becomes weaker and weaker. The next time it has to dive and take the animal, the peregrine falcon, or whatever the animal or bird of prey it may be. But the bird keeps trying. The bird does not quit. The bird does not give up. And that's because it was created by the Creator, and the Creator has promised to provide for it. So the Hadith is teaching us the importance of tawakkul, the status of tawakkul, and also the meaning of tawakkul. Whereas tawakkul is not sitting at home. Tawakkul is not just a person saying, I'm just going to make dua and that's it. Tawakkul is not just talking and yapping and yearning and longing and hoping. But tawakkul, the hadith clearly says, taghdu. It leaves the nest early in the morning. And the hadith clearly says, wataruhu. And it comes back later on in the evening. So the bird has to leave the nest. So there's action that you have to do and perform along with your dua, and along with that psycho spiritual concept of tawakkul, mentally and spiritually. In your mind, putting your trust in Allah, it's going to happen, it's going to take place, and your heart and your soul as well. So the hadith, that's what it teaches us, and that if you really want to get married and study, if you want to protect your chastity, you want to do the right thing, you want to stay away from the wrong thing, and you want to seek this deen, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it will take place and it will happen. Allah will support you. Now, it may not be overnight. It may not be in a snap of the finger that you want it to be. Or you may not necessarily marry the person that you want to marry. As many brothers think, they want to marry this beauty queen. Or sisters, they think they want to marry this handsome, smooth, slick brother who reads and studies, prays at night, fasts every day, finishes the Quran every 3 days, and is going to take them out shopping, want to buy them this, going to spend time with this. It's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. So you have to be balanced and moderate. What's important is the student of knowledge, who's a serious student of knowledge, nothing can divert him or her from seeking it. Period. Marriage, babies, bills, nothing. Okay? And if you put your trust in Allah, you'll find enough time and enough energy and inshallah ta'ala enough money to have your wife, to have children, and to be studying overseas or studying in America or Canada or wherever you live. That's the moral of the story. And of course, as we explained in the previous chapter, if you can't do both, you're not a multitasker, you can't stay focused, you get distracted, you give up and quit. If your wife nags you, or you get into an argument with your wife, or your baby is crying, or if your husband demands something from you as a student of knowledge, your wife, then that's a different story. But it doesn't mean that you ignore and neglect getting married, but it just means you maneuver and you buy yourself time. Inshallah, 6 months, I want to get married. Next year, I want to get married. When I finish memorize this, I want to get married. And of course, the search and the seeking of knowledge is never ending. It doesn't stop after you graduate. It doesn't work like that. That's the beginning of your true studies. And Allah surely knows best. Speaking about tawakkul and how Allah loves the mutawakkilin and commanded us to put our trust in Him and upon Him, our reliance in Allah, and the different stories of Musa alayhi and Maryam and the other prophets and messengers, and when they put their trust in Allah, look what happened. And the companions, the different miracles that Allah allowed them to perform, how they won different battles against all odds. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and they won. And they had a stunning, dazzling victory because they put their trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. And a talib al-ilm has to know that more and better than anyone else. Moving forward. Next chapter states, a student of knowledge should not neglect his wife. Once more, is another practical question, and it's a product of the previous 2 chapters. Okay, Akhi, you tell me get married. You tell me don't worry about the bills. You can study full time. You can be serious. But what about spending time with my wife? If I'm reading Bukhari, if I'm memorizing this, if I'm getting ijazah in that, if I'm sitting with this sheikh, if I'm in the library all day like you tell us to do. What about that now? How can I not neglect my wife? Or Because I'm studying, I can neglect my wife. Because I'm studying, I don't have to give her as much time and attention. Because I'm studying, she doesn't need love and affection from me. All right? We said here in this chapter heading, it's not a question here. You notice that. But this is direct. Just like Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, and other scholars, but specifically Imam al-Bukhari, when it was an issue that it was khilaf, or it was subtle, etc., oftentimes he would put a question mark. هل يقال هل على كذا هل على من كذا من النساء والصبيان مثلا. And as far as if it was an issue in which was clear text or no difference of opinion, he would what? وجوب كذا, تحريم كذا, يفعل كذا, لا يجوز كذا, right to the point. So this chapter heading is right to the point, and it is not an intriguing, thought-provoking question like the other chapters. And that is why. And as we said many times before, not boasting, not bragging, not praising ourselves, but just speaking from Allah's bounty, is that the book is organized and put together cohesively. And we've done this in the imitation of many great scholars, and from them is Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala. And hopefully the people and the readers can understand this and appreciate and respect this. And what is our vision and our movement for the future? And what is our vision and our movement for the West and for America? And how it is our goal, inshallah, our objective and our dream to create solid, concrete, indigenous, homegrown scholarship. Listen carefully. Solid, not flimsy, feeble, concrete, real, solid, indigenous. No disrespect to no one overseas. No disrespect to the ulama here and this one. No disrespect to nobody. But not necessarily just a translation and a subtitle and a carbon copy. Sheikh Fulan said this. No. But homegrown, indigenous, from the people, for the people, by the people, scholarship here. Now, of course, many people, they're going to say, well, brother, Muhammad ibn Munir, not Mufti, your name's not Mufti, you're not a Mufti, Muhammad ibn Munir, you're not a scholar, you should not be called Mufti, you shouldn't, if it's a nickname, whatever, Muhammad ibn Munir, okay? That's your name. You're not a scholar, there are no scholars, so on and so forth. Okay. So if that statement was true, that there are no scholars in the whole entire North America, or the whole entire West, if that was true, what does that mean? Does that mean that we shouldn't push forward to making scholars for here? We shouldn't try? We shouldn't attempt? We should not look forward to and aspire to become a scholar? Should we just be pleased with translating for the rest of our lives and importing rulings and importing culture and importing things that are not directly from Kitab and Sunnah to our country and our people? And there are many other things like this. People that say, oh, there's no this today, there's no that today, there's no establishment of kada. Okay, no problem. Maybe there isn't. So does that mean that we shouldn't be trying to establish it? We shouldn't be trying to perform it? We shouldn't be trying to propagate it? So it's a great deal of sickness that we have. And there are many things that we don't have in America or in the Middle East, but at the same time, people are not sincere and they're not honest because they're not striving to do it. They say there's no Islamic government, there's no central government, there's no caliphate, there's no jihad, there's no this, there's no that. What are you trying? Are you striving to establish it? Is it obligatory to establish it? Or you just keep saying, we don't have, what is not, what cannot be, the conditions are not fulfilled. Until when will we say that? We've said that 2000, it's 2021. We were saying that in the 90s. And they were saying it in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 50s. Until when will the people say that? So, not talking about this or that, we're talking about right now scholastics, scholarship, the goal and the mission, inshallah ta'ala, of myself and many other brothers and sisters, and I'm speaking about HadithDisciple, is to establish that. And it's one of the reasons why we wrote this book and other books, which is not a translation, but it is our own ta'leef. We authored the book, how we feel it should be authored, and we're trying to lift the bar, educate the people, and push them higher. I'm not a scholar. I'll never be a scholar. I can't be a scholar. No problem. But how about my son and your son? Can they be scholars? Okay, one says, well, ya akhi, it's not about Arab and black, Arab and white, Arab. It's not about that. You know, these brothers from overseas, Medina, Saudi, Azhar, Egypt. You know, they studied Quran before you were practicing. They're Arabs. They know better. So tayyib. But until when will we say that? And can the next generation not grow up from day one? Once they learn Arabic, and that's how I looked at myself when I was in Medina. And obviously, when I was in Medina, I knew Arabic. I never looked at myself as being inferior to my classmates, because I knew Arabic and they spoke Arabic. Period. This one from Kuwait, from Egypt, this one from Nigeria, he was speaking Arabic his whole life. I only learned Arabic when I was 16, no problem. But once I was at a level, I was equal to him, we're the same person. Rather, I can now surpass him in hifd. I can get a higher grade on my tests. I can debate with the teacher. I can do the bahth and the research better than him. I can find a hadith that he didn't know about. And once I know how to read and communicate and write in Arabic, there's no difference between me and the Kuwaiti. There's no difference between me and the Egyptian. There's no difference between me and the brother from Mauritania. We are the same. We have equal opportunity now because I have access to his sources. I have access to his shuyukh, his books, etc. And I may be working harder than he is. I may be reading and studying while he's asleep. So you have to have the mentality to push forward and to establish. And we look at Saudi and Egypt and these other countries and Turkey or other Malaysia, other parts of the world, there wasn't always establishments. There wasn't always Islamic University. There wasn't always an Azhar. There wasn't always an Islamic University of Malaysia. And there had to come someone who was a visionary. And there had to come someone who had the guts and the courage to say, we're going to do it in Malaysia. We're going to establish it in Turkey. Yes, the scholar came from Syria, he came from Iraq, he came from Hijaz, but we're going to establish a school, what? In Istanbul for the Turkish people, etc., etc., etc. So what allowed them, or what gave them the right to do that? What legitimized them? You don't think they took pressure and heat? Why are you making a school? Why have a university in Istanbul when you can just go to Syria? But they did it. So why can't we do that in America? Why can't we make and establish and create and build? And that's from the mission statement of HadithDisciple. So it says a student of knowledge should not neglect his wife. You should not ignore and neglect your wife even though you're seeking ilm. Hadith number 3. Al-Aswad, or it says Al-Aswad narrated that one day he asked his teacher, Aisha radiallahu anha, what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do in his house? She replied, كان يكون في مهنة أهله تعني خدمة أهله فإذا حضرت الصلاة خرج إلى الصلاة. He used to keep himself busy serving his family. And when it was time for salah, he would go out to the masjid. This hadith has been collected by Al-Bukhari in his authentic Jami'. The highlighting point from the hadith and the connection of the hadith and the chapter heading is that whenever the Prophet was in the household, as if he wasn't the Prophet. As if. We said as if. He was a husband. He was a father. He was a stepfather. Okay? He instructed. He physically did things, served. He joked with his family members. He played with children. He was affectionate to them. He didn't have a problem stitching his sandals or sewing his garment. He didn't have a problem milking a goat or a cow for his family. That's what we mean by as if he wasn't a prophet. Meaning the hat, the helmet of the Rasulullah, the teacher of the Quran, the warrior in Allah's cause, the statesman, the da'i, so on and so on and so on and so forth. He was a husband in the house. So the highlighting point is that that's what the Prophet was in the household. It wasn't a thing which Aisha said that he recited the Quran day and night. And he said everything haram, halal day and night. But he actually was a husband to his family. And not only did he spend time with them, but he served them. Honor and serving. Honor and serving people and offering services to the people, especially your family members. That's the sunnah. So the Prophet, when he was in the household, he prioritized his time with his family. But when it came to Allah's rights, going to the masjid, what? Khalas. There is no, oh, I'm a husband now and I can't go to the masjid. I'm a husband now so I can't go and do my duty. No. Allah's rights are not to be confused with the rights of other people, of human beings, the rights of others who have rights over you. So the highlighting point is that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, who had to teach the Quran, spread his hadiths, fight in Allah's cause, look after the orphans, the widows, collect the zakah, distribute the zakah. The Prophet ﷺ, who had to answer people's questions, deal with people's complaints. The Prophet had to deal with the munafiqun, the kuffar trying to attack them. A long list of jobs and duties. But he still found time to serve his wife and to look after his wife and look after those who were in his house and under his roof or roofs. So that's the highlighting point. And that whoever has a sincere intention, Allah will make it easy for them. Okay? Whoever wishes to destroy the people's wealth, we all know what happened to them. And whoever wishes to pay back a debt and give the people what he owes them, Allah will make it easy for him. So if you want to study and you want to take care of your children and spend time with your family, you can do it. If you're sincere, if you seek Allah's help, if you manage your time properly, and if you learn how to double task. I teach my wife the Quran. It's review from me and also teaching her. I teach my children the Quran. It's review from me and tarbiyah of my children. And me removing the responsibility and the duty of being a parent, so on and so forth. So the concept of things that can be done if you're hanging out every day, if you're playing around, if you're laughing and joking, let alone if you're talking about people day and night, spending time and energy refuting people, trying to find people's mistakes and errors, then of course you're not going to have time to study and be a husband. You're not going to have time to study and be a father. You're not going to have time to study and be a stepfather. But if you're stingy with your time and you use it upon khair, you can do it. And the same applies to friendship. You befriend those who study with you, or they go to the same class, or they're your students, or they're your teachers. You maximize. You do two birds with one stone. And of course, birds of a feather flock together. Birds of a feather flock together, all right? Birds of prey don't hang out with swallows and sparrows and pigeons. They don't get along. You'll never see them. You'll never see a cardinal and a blue jay and a goose along with a falcon or a hawk or an owl or vulture. It doesn't exist. They eat meat. They eat flesh. Their sharp talons, their sharp curved beaks rip open the bellies of game and prey. And the cardinal and the blue jay and the pigeon, their beaks are straighter. They eat nuts. They eat berries. They eat seeds. And occasionally a worm or something like this, an insect. Their beaks aren't the same. Their claws, their talons aren't the same. Their feathers aren't the same. They're different birds. So the meat-eating, vicious, attacking, hunting birds, they don't hang out with the peaceful songbirds. So the concept of this person is wasting my time, I don't want to hang, you shouldn't be hanging out with them anyhow, if you're a talib al-ilm. You shouldn't be friends with them day and night, up and down the street with somebody that's a normal person that's talking about fulan and fulan all day long. So the point is that when you actually take an inventory of your time and you look at where time is spent and wasted, you'll find the reason why, oh man, I don't have enough time to talk to my wife. I don't have enough time to talk to my kids. I don't have enough time to give dawah because I'm studying. That's a weak excuse. So you have to maximize your time. You have to prioritize your responsibilities. You have to be sincere. You have to seek Allah's help. And if you try, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, Allah will take care of the rest. That's the highlighting point. And of course, there are levels. And of course, it's relative and subjective. You have to have the right wife. You can't have a wife who's saying, I want you to take me to the movies and take me to Burger King and take me to Dunkin' Donuts and walk down the street every day, every night. Take me to go shopping for a new pocketbook, for new high-heel shoes. I want a new niqab. I want a new overgarment. I want to buy some lingerie in the mall. I want to go here. I want to go get this made. I want to go do that. You can't have that type of wife. Even if your wife isn't a student of knowledge, she has to be someone to understand that my husband isn't normal. My husband is abnormal. He will give me time. He spends time with me, but he doesn't have time like the brother who teaches English. He doesn't have time like the brother who's a basketball player overseas. He doesn't have time like the one who's a normal person. He's a talib ilm. He's a scholar. He's a sheikh. He's an alim. He has duties. He has responsibilities. And he has a passion. And if he has 4 wives, in reality he has 5 wives. In reality he has 6. There's wife 1, wife 2, wife 3, wife 4. The real human being co-wives. And the other 2 wives is learning and teaching. Dawah and talab. So in actuality, you got to realize is that his time is not going to be like the average person's time. And the same applies to a husband. You have a husband who sees that you're studying, you're trying to learn, and he says, scrub the floor, cook my meal, clean the windows, pick up the baby, wash the baby, change the baby, put the baby to sleep, read the baby a story, breastfeed the baby, burp the baby, Honey, can you change the baby's diaper? I have a class. No, I'm busy. I'm sorry. Honey, can you burp the baby? No, men don't burp babies. Honey, can I go outside to the masjid? Me and the sisters, no, you can't go outside the masjid. Stay in the house. وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ. Stay in your homes. Do not leave your house. If you go outside the house, you're divorced. If you go outside and I see your fingers or your eyelashes are exposed, I would divorce you. You can't have a husband like that. An overzealous husband, a jealous, envious type of husband, insecure husband. You can't have a husband that's a control freak. You can't have a husband who's too macho and too super chauvinistic to pick up a baby and to pick up a plate. You're going to need a husband that doesn't mind cooking tonight. I have an exam tomorrow. Can you cook? No problem. Sure. Can you walk the baby? No problem. Sure. I need you to go get me some Pampers and diapers from the pharmacy. No, I shall not do that. You can't have a husband that's a fake robot like that. So you have to have a husband who's similar to you. And many sisters, they pick husbands that for other reasons. He's cute. He's handsome. He wears polo. Oh, mashallah. Look at him. Oh, look at him, mashallah. And they think it's cool and they think it's good. They think he's going to read Bukhari. They think he's going to let them read Bukhari. And when they get married, they find out that the husband is nothing special and he doesn't want the wife to be anything special. And they get stuck. So you have to be selective who you marry. And I've had many students, some are still my students and some sisters are no longer my students. Their husbands would complain about their husbands. Sheikh, what's the ruling on a man trying to prevent me from getting more ilm? He's afraid that I know more than him. I memorize more than him. He's insecure. So the problem comes in picking the spouse. You want a dunya bunny as a brother, you get a dunya bunny. You want a dunya guy who's worrying about his waves and how cute he is and he's got on the latest fashion, that's what you'll get. You get a pretty boy who's going to cry and whine when there's no hot water. Who's going to cry and whine when he eats a meal with just bread and beans. Who's going to cry and whine when there's no money being sent from back home. And all you have to eat is yogurt and stale bread. If you want a rider, a soldier, a real person, even if he's not studious, and that's what you'll get. And of course, to get a wife like that, or to get a husband like that, you have to sacrifice. And you have to lose a piece to gain a piece. You have to lose a square to gain 2 or 3 squares. So it can be done. That's the point. Is that what? It's possible with sacrifice and with the proper guidance. And with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all success. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد.